Morena, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the first Climate and Environment Subcommittee meeting for this year. I would like to pass over to Councillor Coe to read the council blessing.
As we deliberate on the issues before us, we trust that we will reflect positively on the communities we serve. Let us all seek to be effective and just, so that with courage, vision and energy, we provide positive leadership in a spirit of harmony and compassion.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. So now we'll move on to apologies. We have a few apologies. Councillor Sophie Hanford is on leave. Mayor Janet Holbrook is she's attending a conference, a meeting in Wellington. Kim Tahiwi is also an apology, and Community Board member Simon Black is online. So now I'd like to move on to, first of all, yes, can I have a mover for those apologies, please? Thank you, Councillor Warwick. Thank you, Councillor Coe. All those in favour? What is the quorum? Just give us a moment.
Quorum is 4 members and only one must be a member of council.
So I think we do meet date. We do. Thank you. Thank you for asking the question. No, it'd be nothing worse than continuing and then finding exactly. So now we'll move on to item 4, which is declarations of interest relating to items on the agenda. Does anyone have any declarations of interest? Thank you. So we're moving on to item number 5, public speaking time. We have public speaking time relating to items on the agenda. We have no members of the public to speak, so that's very quick as well. So now we'll move on to item number 6, members' business. So do we have any leave of absences that people would like to apply for? They can either do it through this committee or through the chair, through the mayor. Thank you. I haven't had any matters of an urgent nature raised to me, so I assume that there are none. Okay, so that's very quick. We're up to item number 7, updates. So I would now like to ask Andy Mackay to come forward to speak to an update on the pest control in our district. Thank you, Andy. Just right here, thank you. So far ahead when you're ready. Oh, you got it. Does your presentation need to go up?
No, we have got it up there. We just working through
Okay.
getting it up.
Okay, thank you.
Kia ora tātou, ko Andy Mackay tōku ingoa. Thank you for having me today. I'm the team leader for the Environment and Ecological Services team, and just apologies from the GM, Sonia Williams. She's off sick today, and my manager, Gareth Eloff, he is conducting interviews this morning as well. So I've been asked to give an update on animal pest control for the region. So what is the problem? Why do we do animal pest control? So we have over 4,000 species at risk or threatened with extinction within Aotearoa. The causes of this are habitat loss, disturbance, predation and pollution. At a nationwide level, we have issues such as only 30% of dunes remaining, and within the Wellington region we only have less than 3% of wetlands remaining. So these are the last remnants of these kinds of habitats and all the plants and animals that live within them. So what can we do about it as a council? So I like to show this image to people thinking about Indigenous biodiversity. So you've got the three-legged stool, you've got pest animal control, habitat restoration and weed control. And if we don't effectively do each of these tasks, then the stool falls over. So we're doing okay as a council within the habitat restoration space. We are planting over 20,000 plants now within the dune, forest and wetland environments. We can always do more, but within animal pest control and weed control, we are falling behind. Without investing in these areas, ecosystem health will continue to decline and the stool will fall over. It's also, from a climate change perspective, healthy forests and wetlands, these are the lungs of our district, and so we need to maintain and enhance these to help meet our climate change goals. In terms of legislation, I'll just point out as well, so this is a matuku hurepo, Australasian bittern. So this is a nationally critical species, less than 1,000 left in New Zealand. They've been observed in very low numbers in Wharezen Reserve and other wetlands across the district. So it's got the same threat status as kakapo and Maui dolphins. And so we have them right here in the district. At a national level, we've got the Biosecurity Act 1993. So this directs regional councils to manage biosecurity under the Greater Wellington Regional Pest Management Plan. This sets out rules for pest management for landowners, including territorial authorities. As under the Resource Management Act last year, we had the National Policy Statement for Indigenous Biodiversity. So this provides direction to councils to protect, maintain and restore Indigenous biodiversity, and it requires at least no further reduction nationally. It also provides clarity and direction to councils on their roles and responsibilities for identifying, protecting and maintaining Indigenous biodiversity. Also within the council's open space strategy, it has 10 priorities, and one of those priorities is protecting, restoring, connecting and enhancing the natural environment. And protection and enhancement of natural values is consistently identified in community consultation as an important issue. This here is a barking gecko. So these are at risk declining, and these are present in Jack's Bush, Ngāmanu Bush, and likely other forest areas around the district. But yeah, they are in trouble as well. So at a council level, we manage around 600 hectares of parks and reserves, not including the dune space. We have 35 ecological sites on KCDC properties. These are the equivalent of significant natural areas, or SNAs, under the Resource Management Act. And we have 66 additional sites of ecological value. So these are areas that don't meet the SNA criteria, but they'll be wetlands and waterways and things like that, which still provide some biodiversity value. So of these almost 100 areas, or just over 100 areas, less than 10 of these have any animal pest control. This means that 90% of council properties are completely unprotected from pest animals. At the moment, the district-wide pest investigation and control budget is $22,932. We have a pest control MOU with Greater Wellington for key native ecosystems. So these are management units that Greater Wellington uses to manage highly valuable areas. This includes private land and Greater Wellington land as well. So we currently, the contract that we have with them, the MOU, is just over $46,000 a year. So because of the funding shortfall, we're currently pulling funding from other parks budgets to fill that space. And within that 46,000, just under 20,000 is focused on animal pest control. So these are specific areas that Greater Wellington are doing. We've got a handful of other reserves that have volunteer trappers. Examples of these are Greendale, Ferrazon Reserve, and Barry Hadfield Nico Reserve. For rabbits, we carry out ad hoc mag toxin application in addition to what Greater Wellington does with shooting. But we currently only have 2 environmental restoration officers, and we don't have any additional capacity for more pest control work. And we also provide some funding to private land through the Heritage Fund as well. So what are other councils doing? So this is a katapo. This is at-risk declining. It's present within Otaki and Te Horo, but very low numbers. So Palmerston North City Council, they spend about $266,000 a year. So they have Turitea Dam catchment management, just over $200,000, a citywide biodiversity, plant and animal pest control at $32,000, and predator-free Palmerston North at $27,000. Wellington City Council, they spend $2.2 million per year. So they've got an animal pest control management budget dedicated biosecurity staff. And then they do high quality pest control over 426 hectares, which includes predator-free Wellington at $235,000 a year. These were the 2 councils just that had visible numbers within their long-term plans. So other councils around are doing similar things as well. So the future, what could it look like in Kapiti? So the image here is Matohuka, Raumete Escarpment. So this is a Kuikui tawa forest. It's regionally endangered. There's only 16% remaining within Wellington region. We do have some pest control happening in here, but it could always be increased. So just making the point that our parks and reserves, they're assets. We do need to look after them. We do need to meet our legislative requirements that require no net loss. Reiterating the open space strategy about protecting, restoring, connecting and enhancing the natural environment. Within the Parks, Open Space and Environment team, we are looking at the potential for hiring a full-time biosecurity officer that can spend more time in this space. And ideally, we could have some more environmental restoration officers too to expand out the work that they're doing. And ideally, in the future, we'll have every site of ecological value will receive adequate animal pest control. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Andy, for your presentation. So I suppose what we've heard from you is that that a lot of our KCDC land is not protected
Correct.
from pests, but we have very little money to do what we have. And yeah, so probably some questions. No doubt we've got quite a few questions. So first of all, I'll pass over to Councillor Coe. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Look, I think the community, I get the feeling, are very passionate about this whole area and want to see some action. I'm just wondering how this fits in with predator-free initiatives, because I'm picking up a sense that there's a lot of people in our community who want to see a predator-free Kapiti, and we do have an initiative just starting off in Te Horo to have predator-free Te Horo, and I think there's potential to widen that out and really engage with people in the community. You know, there's a lot of people who have said they're willing to put their hands up and actually help and, you know, make traps and put traps on their property, etc., etc. So where does this fit into your thinking about how you might deal with these issues?
Yeah, I think so. Predator-free initiatives are really great. The issue that we have is that you have people coming with when they're starting out, they've got low base knowledge, and so they need people to help support and grow these initiatives. I think as a council as well, we need to focus on looking after our own properties first as a priority. The sort of backyard trapping initiatives that have occurred, we do have some of those happening already within Kapiti that have been very much community-led. In Wellington, I think is the model for the rest of the country really in terms of how they've gone about getting the community involved. But I think it's really critical to understand that these, you do need paid roles to help
Yes.
support and grow these.
Yep.
Volunteers are fantastic, but they can't do everything.
That's right.
Personally, I've been running a trap line down off Paikakiriki Hill Road for the last 10 years, and that's had no council support over that time. But so it can be done, but I do just really want to push that we do need some support from council to be able to do that. And at the moment, we're pretty pushed.
Yeah, look, I completely agree with that. I think it's very hard for community groups to do things unaided. So just how do we, how can we work in partnership with the community? Because I see there's an opportunity to leverage the council resource by bringing in people from the community to, with the support of someone from council just to expand out the effort. So is that something that we can work into our thinking as to how we can engage with the community? Because that's something where elected members, I think, can help, to round up the troops, so to speak, to become engaged in this. I for one will put up my hand to, to help lead the charge on that, and I'm sure there's others around the table who would do that as well. So, if we can be of use, so to speak, and achieving that goal, then please ask.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, just to take a step back, what I'd like to see is an integrated pest management plan for the district. Our most at threat and high value areas don't always necessarily match up with where people are living. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the risks with putting all the focus into predator-free initiatives with volunteers, is that you don't always do the work where it is most critically needs to happen.
Yeah.
So fully support that we can do some work in that space, but I think that we need to do it strategically.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. I get that.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. So if I can just chip in here. So, you mentioned integrated pest management strategy, and I suppose I've written down here a coordinated approach, which I think is probably, something, an umbrella that actually supports all the various community groups that are going on, but also has some coordination and some strategy. So I think it's actually really timely that we've got this presentation today, because later in our agenda we are looking at our climate, an environment direction of travel document, and we might want to think how that actually fits into what is planned in that space. So just another question, I know there's other questions too. Is there any additional funding in our long-term plan?
In terms of the coming up long-term plan?
Yes.
I haven't been involved so much in that process, so I'm not entirely sure where that's at. We were told that essentially that this was essentially no new projects to go into bids, so whether or not this would fit as a new project, but yeah.
Mr. Mellon, I think, had some comments to make.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, so I'm not aware of any increased funding in this area. There were a number of bids put up for the Parks and Open Space area for additional funding, but they did not make it through the LTP workshop process in terms of increased budgets.
Thank you, Mr. Mellon. So we'll move on to other elected members' questions. Councillor Warwick. Thank you.
With expressway path, NZTA were told for many years, 2018 was the first time we contacted them about rabbits. So, and they just seem to have done nothing. What their obligation is also still with the planting, and north of like Waikanae, there's a heap of gorse and stuff that they've been notified about. What pressure is going on them to stump up some money for pest control and habitat?
So they currently have no legal obligation to do anything other than within the regional pest management strategy with rabbits. They are required to keep rabbits under a certain level. I know that Greater Wellington has been working with them to to see results, but it's been a bit of a long-term process. I have been working with community members and Forest and Bird around the pampas infestation around the Waikanae Expressway, and it's been incredibly difficult to get an answer at NZTA. It's hard.
I thought they were responsible for the plantings for 7 years or a certain amount of time to ensure that the plantings were.
My understanding for the Mackay's to Pika Pika section of the expressway, they had a 3-year requirement for pest management, but it wasn't explicit about animal pests, so they did some weed control. But my understanding is that basically finished in 2019. We had community members meet with the previous Conservation Minister, Eugenie Sage, when she was Minister, and there was basically not much assistance there either in terms of that government minister pressure.
I think Mr. Mellon has some comments to make as well.
I think Andy's just say it was only 3 years the extended maintenance period on the planting, and since it's opened, it's been an ongoing battle to get maintenance done on those planting areas. There was some work done recently. The cycleway down off Kapiti Road to the south, they've done some work, but the pest management is a substantial issue right the way through that shared path, and we don't have the ability to force Wakakatahi to do anything in that space. So, but we do continue to raise it, and that's as much as we can really do.
I just had a follow-on.
Thank you, Mr. Mellon. So we'll just move online to.
I just had a.
Oh, sorry.
So just following on from what Liz said, within that strategy that you're doing with pest control, is there any scope to have like adopt an area funding schemes where people can put in to help fund pest control, and even schools, because schools can get access to Fonterra funding and stuff like that if they're part of that program and it's put into their learning or their education.
So we have, when funding opportunities come up, we do encourage our community groups that we have contact with to apply for funding. The issue with relying too much on the community is that when people, you often get someone that has a lot of energy that pushes these things for a couple of years, then they burn out or they move away and then there's no one else to pick it up. So I think, having a council-led approach where we're appropriately funding these positions, you're not going to end up with these, gaps when people's situations change. So I think the community trapping is incredibly important, but it needs to be in support of council initiatives, not kind of, where all our effort is going.
Thank you. So now we'll move online to Mr. Black for some questions, comments.
Kia ora tātou, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair. Hey, look, thank you very much for your presentation, Andy. This is a huge area of concern for myself as well, and what we can do about our pests. I've been told by some of our locals that there's a huge infestation of possums up Te Roto Drive or Te Roto Road up at Otaki. And I raised this with council, and they said, well, this is out of our jurisdiction. You have to go to DOC, and they can't force private landowners to perform pest eradication. So how are we dealing with that situation?
Through you, Madam Chair. So I was part of that email chain. So it's Greater Wellington has the jurisdiction in this area through the Biosecurity Act and the Regional Pest Management Plan. But it is, essentially up to private landowners to manage possums on their own properties. So as a council, there's very little that we can do as a territorial authority to push that, other than providing support initiatives or funding through things like the Heritage Fund.
Is there a way that we can actually set up mechanisms with the landowners to actually make them aware of the situation or work with them?
I'm sure that we could, but I mean, it's really, I guess, what the council wants to spend money on.
Thank you. The other question I have is, with the mandates of population growth, intensification, and tourism strategies, how do we deal with conflicting priorities in regards to our environment, pest control, and all the other impacts on those areas?
Is this in relation to new developments or?
Yeah, well, just council priorities. If, let's say, we have some sort of priority within council that conflicts with our pest eradication and takes away from that focus, how do we deal with that internally? I mean, is it just we need actually more focus and money and budget through the LTP? How are we addressing these issues internally, I suppose?
I think that's quite a complex question, but from new developments and things that we are taking on new land as well. But essentially we don't currently have funding to expand anything out. So we've taken on new forest and wetland areas, and not really able to expand out in terms of what we are doing already.
Cool. Thank you very much. Andy, that's all the questions I have, Madam Chair. Just an observation that I think we probably need to see if we can get a bid into the LTP to cover the shortfall in our obligations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Black. I have to say, on my control panel here, I can't see the names of. Yes, so yes, Mr. Moore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I know your names, but I couldn't see the order.
That's fine. Thank you, Andy. This is a subject dear to us on the coast, and as Councillor Coe, as a resident of Te Horo Beach like I am, really interested in the subject and the community initiative that's started very recently at the initiative of the residents group, the Friends of Te Horo Beach, and forming this group called Predator Free Te Horo Beach. So these initiatives are really exciting that are going to happen, and they need to, of course, as you mentioned, happen in a wider strategy, so we're not kind of happening things ad hoc. So I've had Hamish Carson out from Greater Wellington. You'll know Hamish and his team, particularly on the coast, and they've already put in a small number of traps from Greater Wellington, which we're monitoring on the trap.nz app, and already found some catches there. This happened as a result just about 4 weeks ago of sightings of stoats chasing the dotterels, which ignited them to do something pretty promptly around, because it's still breeding season at the Mangagoni Lagoon at the mouth there at Te Horo Beach. So we're really keen to move into this, and the community is really enthused, as Councillor Coe has said, and they can practically get involved very quickly on this. So we really want to be part of this and how this moves forward for the wider district, not just thinking by ourselves at that locale. Yeah, that's all I want to add at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. So now we move on to Glenn Olsen.
Yeah. Thank you. Just a couple of ones. I take it from this conversation there's very limited central funding or government funding or programs that we can, join to help out with this?
Through you, Madam Chair. So there is the Predator-Free 2015 initiatives who provide funding to both schools and community backyard trapping initiatives. That is available. And we do have for community groups that are set up as incorporated societies, they can apply for funding through things like previously it's been Wellington Community Trust, the Dock Community Fund, there's a Nico Trust as well, and a few other initiatives that you can apply to. One of the groups that I've been involved in since 2015 has pulled in over $500,000 worth of funding for conservation into the coast. So there is funding out there available, but you need to have people that are applying for it and have the ability to write applications. And then I know for the Nico Foundation last year, I think we had about 10 applications from groups, which we encouraged, mainly for animal pest control. And none of those applications were successful. I think they had over 300 or 400 applications throughout the district. So it is highly competitive, and you don't always have the success.
Yeah, thank you. On the pests, the rabbit, of course, is one of the most visual to the community and the one that everybody sees because they're just out there. Other than that, if we're talking non-domesticated animals, which I mean pets. What are the major pests that we have in the community, and are we targeting them as well? I know we've heard, possums and that as well, but are there ones the council was specifically worried about and targeting?
So I think probably the biggest threat would be mustelids, so ferrets, stoats and weasels. We have large numbers of those throughout the district. Ferrets tend to be more common sort of Waikanae North, but we are fairly convinced that the expressway opening up has created not just an expressway for vehicles but also for pests. So we are seeing increasing numbers of definitely ferrets coming down, and we have there's the Capital Kiwi Initiative, which goes as far north as Porirua. And one of the reasons that has been successful is that there's no ferrets within the Wellington Porirua region. But if they do come, they'll be coming through Kapiti. So I think, looking to support our neighbours as well for these really fantastic things that are happening elsewhere, is that I think it'd be really good to support them too and get that happening.
So if we were, if the community was to report a sighting of a ferret or a stoat, I wouldn't know how to talk the two apart actually, but would the council act on that, or would they do anything, or would it just be?
We have no funding to do that, and we have no capacity. No. So it's we're logging them as service requests, but there's nothing we can do about that. It's just the nature of the way that these animals move about as well, is they have extremely large home ranges, and so often by the time you see them, they're not going to be in that same area by the time you get the trap out. So it's by having those trap networks set up first is that you can get these animals as they're coming through.
Yeah, it's interesting you say the expressway, because I think I've seen that, because I saw the other night a ferret or a stoat, twice now I've seen run across by the roundabout by by Amazing Guard Road and Ratanui Road, down there, and that's near the expressway. So I've seen a few, ferrets or stoats running across there recently. So that's, first time I've seen them is this year. I've never seen them. I've heard them down further south, but first time I've heard them around here. The last one is, how do we work with like dock and stuff? So I'm thinking, I believe the Paparam Scenic Reserve is dockland, and I noticed a big part of it, if you go down there opposite Angus Way, which once upon a time was a nice area where you could picnic and stuff, and now it's just complete gorse. How can we, work with DOC to get that cleaned out? Is there something they can do? Do they just, do they work with us on that, or is it they're just like, well, it is what it is?
So I think like most central government agencies, they're facing funding pressures as well at the moment. We work really closely with DOC on a range of initiatives. I know within the Paraparaumu Scenic Reserve, they do pay contractors to run bait lines, and they've got a really fantastic community group there as well, who are doing a lot of work within that reserve, including pest control. But again, I think, you know, we need to focus on our own properties first as a priority, and yeah, that's can't do it all, but
No.
I'd like to.
Understand, yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for that. That's really good.
So that is the end of our questions, and I have a few sort of comments and questions. So I suppose Andy's touched on some of these points. So I'm a member of the Farrison Reserve Focus Group, and as Andy mentioned, there's a volunteer who goes in there and traps animals, and it's actually really interesting the numbers that do come out of that reserve. And that's just a very small part of the district or the area that really doesn't have houses on it. Over the last few months, I've seen at least 3 dead mustelids coming off or going onto the expressway at Waikanai, at Te Moana Road. So they are around. Obviously, I don't know whether the climate or the food sources have changed to increase their numbers, or whether they're just more visible because of the weather, maybe the dry weather. I don't know. So this, I suppose, conversation has come up before, and I know you mentioned earlier on that there's an MOU with GW, and they have very limited funds. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, within that MOU, that they do surveys to check to see whether or not the concentrations of pests are high enough, and I know specifically with the rabbits that hasn't been deemed to be high enough. Is that a fair comment?
Correct. So, well, it's not part of the MOU per se, but they do small mammal monitoring in Queen Elizabeth Park, and they do some other monitoring around the district as well. In terms of the rabbit pellet counts, under the regional pest management strategy, they are required to basically, when landowners when they have too many rabbits on their properties, they can put a notice on them to reduce those. But there's a fairly high threshold to actually meet that requirement. So I know that they have done some recently, but we are seeing, you know, I think historically high numbers of rabbits around the district, and those are supporting high mustelid populations as well, which then go on to feed on native birds and skunks and things.
So thank you for that. So my other, I suppose, given the conversations from around the table here, is that there's obviously I suppose there's much more interest and a desire to manage our pests in our communities. My question is, and it's great that that community groups are wanting to do this, does KCDC have any information about all these groups, and, you know, as a starting point to understand what is going on in the district and what types and numbers of pests are being caught, or is it sort of just ad hoc in terms of what you're hearing? And would something like that be useful?
So there's a website called TrapNZ, which is run by Ground Truth, which is based in Paikakiriki. It's the most well-used trapping database throughout the country. So we have membership of most of the trapping groups which are uploading information to that database. There's a few that don't use it, so we do have a reasonable number about what is happening for the data that we do have. And we have fairly regular contact with about just over 30 community conservation groups, but not all of those groups are doing animal pest control.
Thank you for that, Andy. So I think we've probably come to the end of your very informative presentation. I think it's very, as I said, it's very timely with our environment conversation we're going to be having shortly, but also food for thought about where we are now, where we can go in the future, and how that's going to be funded. So thank you very much again.
Thank you.
So if we go to page 6, we'll see we have one recommendation for this update, and that is the Climate and Environment Subcommittee note the contents of this report. May I have a mover for that, please? Thank you. Mr. Elson. And seconder? Councillor Warwick, thank you. Before we go on to the next...
We have to-
yes, sorry, yes.
is there any- I would just like to throw in some comments in relation to that.
Any comments, yes. Far ahead.
Because I think we need to be a bit stronger in terms of taking some next steps on this matter, rather than just noting a report from staff. It seems to me there's some really important issues here around resourcing for the initiatives that really need to happen, which are partly underway. So I think we do need to take a close look at whether we have allowed sufficient resourcing in our long-term plan for these matters, and also how we can further engage with the community and what support we can give community initiatives, particularly around things like predator-free, but also the other groups that are working in this space. So I think I would like to see something a bit stronger in the wording there, that we actually and that we maybe something comes back to this committee that explores those things further, and we take it forward, because otherwise I can't see anything's going to happen. And we've been alerted to the fact that we're not doing well as far as pest eradication is concerned.
Chris would like to make some comments. I have some comments as well, some thoughts, but pass over to Chris. Van, thank you.
Thank you. And I will say on behalf of SLT that we have a few people down this week for a variety of reasons, so apologies for that. Sonia and Gareth both could not be here today for 2 different reasons. If it would be useful, because I see the point that you're making, Councillor, that there are some things that were raised today that you'd like a report back on. In relation to this meeting, I think it might be worthwhile to add that as a recommendation from this table for a further update to come back, so that we can ensure that we can answer those questions. So in relation to our long-term plan, just to assure you that there aren't things that are falling through the cracks or missing. Each part of the business has looked carefully at how they're managing some of those pressures. So I think it would be good for Gareth to be able to come back and talk to you about that, so you get that fuller picture. So understand why you may have some concerns today, but I think it would be useful for us to come back to you perhaps at the next meeting.
So thank you. So we haven't actually passed our recommendation yet, but I was going to suggest that if there was a further recommendation that came from the committee, that would be something that we can consider. I also note in our environment strategy, it actually very clearly asks us to discuss if there are any gaps in that strategy. So there's also that opportunity there to have a discussion about it. So I will leave it up to you, for example, to move any further recommendations.
Well, I think we should probably deal with the one that's on the table now.
Yes, yep. Yes, so thank you. So we have, the recommendation is that the Climate and Environment Subcommittee note the contents of this report. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against?
So I would like to move an additional recommendation, that is that a further report be given to this committee
Outlining.
to update us on, well, I'm not sure what the exact words are, but to update us on resourcing requirements and strategies for for pest eradication or, yeah. I don't know, help me with some words here, somebody.
So can I? Yes, if I can ask staff, do we have a pest eradication policy? I've seen your hand, Simon. We'll just Andy's going to come.
Andy, what would you like to see happen as a way forward? Maybe you're the best person to word this recommendation.
Through you, Madam Chair. I think the wording was pretty good, Councillor Coe. Yeah, I think it's a good start. So no, we don't currently have a strategy or policy around animal pest control. So yeah, other than what we're doing directly with the MOU with Greater Wellington.
So do you think we need one?
Yes.
Right. So I think we need an request a further report to be provided to the Climate Environment Subcommittee to update us on resourcing for pest control and progress towards a pest control strategy. Something like that.
Sounds good.
Can I count Ms. Purvan?
You are going to consider the policy work program, which has our strategies and our policies in it, and the priority across those, and then in the next sort of month or so. I think it would be important for that to be considered in that. And the reason I'm saying that is because I'm just thinking of the series of conversations we've had with you about trying to make sure that we're prioritising and maintaining the level of service that we have rather than increasing it. And whilst you might want to report back, I just want to make the point that we would have to balance that with other work that's underway at the moment. So I'm not saying it's not important, by the way. It might be that this is the priority, but just acknowledging that it fits within that we're not directing that a piece of work progress would be important.
So we haven't put a time frame on this. We're just signalling that we do need to consider resourcing in this area and work towards a strategy. We haven't said in there anything about the time frame. So maybe you could tag on there, to fit in with other priorities. Yeah. Yeah, so do you have a recommendation for what we could add into the wording there?
Sorry. I just wonder if this would align to the environment strategy that you actually are shortly going to speak to, and whether it's noted that it could be considered as part of that work. And I'm only saying that because if we can align things, whilst you put this in the recommendation, I just don't want it to encourage a piece of work to be kicked off because you want it back. So if we could say, and towards a pest control strategy, as part of the wider environment, that would be great. Thank you.
So what I'm going to do is test the waters, asking for a mover and a seconder. But before I do that, as you've seen, there have been some other people come into this meeting room. So we have three councillors who aren't on this committee. We also have other people online. We have Councillor Hanford online, Hirawai Pakawai online, and also Tim Sutton, who are members of this committee. So I will test the waters. So do we have a mover for the recommendation that
I'll
we?
move it. Yep, I'll move it.
Okay. We have a seconder. Okay, thank you. So now we have, I'll go for questions or comments. We have Mr. Black online.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I'd like to support this resolution. I don't want to get this lost amongst the wider program of the environmental issues we're looking at the moment. Gaps, I think we probably need to consider community engagement and also liaison with central agencies so that we can actually get forming a continuous network so there's no gaps within our pest eradication programs. Yeah, I just don't want to let this piece of important kaupapa lost amongst all the other parts going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Councillor Halliday.
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you for the indulgement. Look, taking on board what's been said, you've got your next conversations around the direction of travel for your climate strategy. I would have thought, environment strategy. I would have thought that potentially this would fit in as part of that. I take on board with regards to council officers saying that asking for a specific report can, should we say, elevate this in regards to the overall strategy, environment strategy, and I do think it needs to be a case of prioritising, taking on board what Mr. Black was saying. Yep, it's really, I do agree, it is important. And the central government, though, has got a 2050 eradication supposed direction that sits at a certain point. There is funding available there as well. Having a focus on this and maybe community groups being brought together in this space in preparedness for developing that kaupapa, I think is really, really important. I'd just be a little bit concerned about the wording there is quite specific about asking for a further report. I do wonder whether it does need to be tied more into your environmental strategy as perhaps a section of that as part of the forward planning on how it would fit in.
Maybe it's update rather than report.
So, Councillor Coe, would you like to change the wording of your recommendation with
I
the
think
agreement
that-
of the mover and the seconder?
Well, I'm the mover, so
Yeah.
can
Yes.
but I'm not sure if I can move an amendment, can I, to my own motion?
Can you put your...
One of the other members? Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Or I was going to say,
Can you put your mic on, please?
yeah, I'll be happy to move it, but I'm also wondering if it.
To make changes to the recommendation?
Yeah, or I'm just wondering, the other option would be to retract it and just redo it as we want to do it. Okay, no, so I'm happy to amend it to say, yeah, the amendment report has been changed, is it already? Or, to further update, yeah, update, that's right, yeah, update, yeah.
Okay, so with that amendment, do the mover and the seconder agree to those changes? Thank you. So I will put the recommendation as it is to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? The recommendation is passed. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. So, thank you, Andy. So what we're going to do now is take a 10-minute coffee break, and so we'll come back here about just a little bit after, or about 22:11. Thank you.